Okay, so we're going to talk about saying yes to your dreams and how to get a yes answer when you are working on sales and recruiting. And let me just tell you, this kind of came at a good time for me, both as a leader and as a human, as a salesperson, as a beauty guide. Hearing no can be really, really tough and can be hard to understand. Hey, what are you doing?
Just watching.
Oh, good. My husband's going to sit down here and watch. That's good. That's not.
No, you're really good.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so he's making me nervous. Hearing no can be really hard to hear as a salesperson, as a recruiter, as somebody that wants to do well with your job. And earlier this week, I had one of my newer beauty guides tell me, she's like, I usually have really great success when I try new things, and I've just talked to this person and that person and this person and that person, and Chris the Overlock says hi, and they keep saying no. They just keep saying no, and it can be very frustrating. So. Both as somebody that is a leader and as a beauty guide myself, hearing no is really hard for me. It's very frustrating, and I would rather run away than deal with the answer no. I would rather avoid the question than hear no, and I think many of you can probably relate to that. So I'm going to refer to a book tonight, and I have some really fancy slides that I made myself. This is a book that Kate Johnson recommended to me a few months ago, and it's called Go for No, and then they talk about Yes is the Destination, and it is by Richard Fenton and Andrea Waltz. I think maybe Richard Fenton wrote it, and they both narrate it in the book, or in the audio. It is available on audible.com. So if you are a member of audible.com, you can get a free 30-day trial with audible.com. So if you are interested in that, I would recommend this Go for No book. It's really, really good. Oh, is it backwards? Of course it's backwards, but it's just called Go for No. Richard Fenton, Fenton. Okay, then I'm not going to show you. They said my slides are backwards. Bummer. I forgot that it's mirror imaged or whatever. Okay. So, this was a great read. It's an easy read, and I'm going to be honest with you. When I first started reading it, I was really kind of annoyed. It's a story. It's told as a story, and I was like, okay, where's the information? The story part of it didn't really speak to me. But one of the things that he said in this book is that hearing no is a fear. It's something that you're afraid of, and I want you to, if you're taking notes, to write this down. Your fear of hearing the word no is the only thing standing between you and greatness. It's your fear of hearing the word no. It's a scary thing. Rejection is really, really hard, and people take rejection personally. Now, let's go back a few years. For me, might be more for some of you, but a few years to when you were a kid. This is something that hearing the word no and being afraid of the word no does not come naturally to us as humans. Think about every child you have ever met, or every child you have ever seen in a grocery store that wants something, or every teenager that wants something from their parent, and they ask over and over and over again until they get the answer that they want. No child that I have ever met is afraid of hearing the word no. And when you think of it in terms like that, it starts to get really silly that as adults, we're very afraid of hearing the word no. We're afraid of hearing it from other people. We're afraid of hearing it from our customers. We're afraid of hearing it from potential recruits. And we are definitely afraid of going forward in things that we really want in our lives, because if we hear the word no, we assume that we have failed and that we are failures. Now, I want you to think about this. Has anybody you have ever heard of in your life that is successful at anything ever not failed? Jamie says her daughter does this every day. How obvious, yet she missed it. Everyone that's ever been successful has failed, and their story always includes how they got through their failure. Let me tell you very, very clearly, failure is not the end of your story. Failure is the halfway mark on the road to success. Many of us get to the word fail or get to where something feels like it's failing, and we assume we're going down the wrong path. So we turn around because we think success must be a different direction. You will hear a lot of people use the word failure in a negative way, or they change the word failure and they sugarcoat it a little bit. They'll use the word mistake or glitch or setback. But really, what's happened is, if you get to a place and you hear the word no, you may have just failed. And it's okay to fail a little bit. I want you to think about this. The best way to desensitize yourself to a word is to use it. Just say you failed sometimes. It's okay. If any of you are in my coaching group, you know that on Tuesday morning I did a video and I told you all about my big failure from earlier this week. The best way to desensitize yourself to an action is to do it. We become very afraid of things that we don't do and that we don't say because it's foreign. Does that make sense? Your kids aren't fazed by the word no. You didn't come by this fear of failure and the word no by naturally. You were born with a tenacity, like a child, to get what you want by being persistent. However, that doesn't mean you have to be annoying. But the willingness to fail is what sets people that are successful apart from people that are not successful. Failure and failing are not the same thing. Just because you have failed at something or you have heard the word no does not make you a failure. So, one of the things that this book tells you is to look yourself in the eye once in a while and say, I like to fail. It's not easy to do. I dare you to try it. Another thing that he said in this book that really made me laugh, and it might help stick with you, that sticks and stones may break your bones, but no can never hurt you. And that is so, so true. So in this book, Going for No, he talks about the 5 phases of going for no, and we're going to go a little bit deeper into this, but it starts off with 100% of the people on the planet have the ability to fail. We all have the ability to fail, but most of us have an intense desire to avoid failing, and that is a fight or flight reaction we have to the word no. Maybe less than 20% of us go on to phase 2 that he talks about in this book, and that is learning the willingness to fail. That means accepting that failure is part of the journey, and I would imagine that many of you are in that phase 2 of what he talks about in this book, that you're willing to accept the fact that you're going to fail once in a while. You're not going to be perfect all of the time, and that hearing no is going to happen occasionally. But here is where, in phase 3, that you start to separate yourself as someone that's very successful. And that is turning that willingness to fail and that accepting failure and turning that into a wantingness to fail. It's beyond tolerance. It's developing the desire to fail and not being upset with it, Jessica. And to move forward. Once you grow beyond that, the wantingness to fail is that you start to learn to fail bigger and fail faster as you make bigger goals. And then you learn to fail exponentially. You start to enlist others to fail with you. Because if you can be a failure as an individual and experience individual success, then group failure must be a lot better, right? Okay, trust me, stick with me. This goes somewhere. What? I'm very smart? Oh, my husband's sweet.
I have 20 plus years in this, and you're nailing all of it.
Oh, my husband says he's got 20 plus years in sales and I'm nailing it, but the peanut gallery should be quiet. You can give me all your feedback later.
No, I want to say you're
Oh,
very
okay.
on point and you're nailing it.
Thanks, honey. Okay. Thank you. Courage, I want you to think of this too, is being afraid of something, but doing it anyway. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how you change this mindset into going beyond tolerating failure and learning to want to fail. When you start wanting to fail and hearing the word no, rejection starts to become fun. You stop getting mad about being rejected, and it starts to become a goal. It starts to become something that you strive for. Why does rejection have to be awful? It doesn't. You can decide to make each no that you hear an empowering experience and a learning experience. So what they teach in this book is that instead of setting goals for yes, so maybe you have a goal, a sales goal. You want to sell 1,000. We're going to just make this easy. For this month, you want to your goals are to sell $1,000, to recruit 2 people, and to have 5 parties. Okay? Those are your goals. Those are the goals that you've set for yourself. What if instead you set your goals a little bit differently and learned to set your goals for rejection instead? The most empowering word in the world, can be no. And it can catapult you to be successful. Yes is easy, but yes teaches us nothing. If everything is easy, imagine if you only ever heard the word yes. Eventually, when you heard no, what would your response be? You would fall apart. What would happen if you suddenly just changed your goal setting to, instead of saying, before I said that, what happens when you reach your goal easily? So let's say your goal for the month was that $1,000, 2 recruits, and 5 parties. Let's say you achieve all of that in the first 2 weeks of your month. And you totally could, right? What if you did those things? What do you do once you've achieved those goals? You slow down. You relax. You think, I did it. I'm awesome. Right? Okay. But how is that going to make you great? It's going to make you've achieved your goals. You've achieved your quota. But what if you changed it around? Instead of setting a goal for $1,000 and 2 new recruits this month and 5 parties, what if you set that goal for the number of rejections that you got in a month? Consider stopping setting success goals and instead set goals to increase your failure. If you said to yourself, I'm going to go for 20 people to tell me no this month when I talk to them about our products. I'm going to go for 5 people to tell me no about our recruiting opportunity. And I'm going to go for, 10 people to tell me no about hosting a party. What if you did that instead? Changed it around. Okay. Think of how that would go. You talk to your first 2 people. What if they both say yes? That's awesome, right? You've talked to your first 2 people. Maybe they both spent $250. You're already halfway to that previous goal that you had, but you haven't got a single no yet. Not a single one. Keep going and hearing the words no and start to make it a challenge to get somebody to tell you no. There's 3 reasons that people are going to tell you no when you go to them with an opportunity. They're going to tell you no. Hi, sweetie.
Right.
Silence can be the same as no. Absolutely. Silence can be the same as no. So people are going to tell you no for 3 reasons. They're going to tell you no because the circumstances aren't right, the timing isn't right, or they don't have enough information. So when you hear the word no, sometimes it means not yet. Sometimes it means that they need different information. I was saying earlier today that, if I'm talking about Limelight Palooza or our incentive trip or something exciting like that to somebody, and I discover later that maybe they're more of a green personality and they need to hear numbers and they need to hear compensation plan, I just might not have given them the right information. 85% of sales conversations end without a salesperson asking for the sale. When you set goals to say no, to hear the word no, it's going to encourage you to ask for the sale or ask for the opportunity to talk about Limelight's business plan. It's going to give you more of a reason to start figuring out questions. What is the best way to word this when going to someone? Well, there's all different ways to word things about when you go to someone. But when you hear no, what you're going to do is you're going to take that experience and learn how you can change it. When you get on a yes streak, and you will get on a yes streak, when you go for no, you're going to get on a yes streak. And guess what? Now your goal is going to become that much hotter because you almost have to challenge yourself to hear no. And sometimes you're going to hear no all the time. But when you change your mindset to not make that something that means that you have failed and something that you can learn from and something that actually gives you a check mark on your list, think about what that does to you mentally. Well, I just got my first no for the day. Check. I only got 5 more to go, right? Abe Lincoln. I want you to think about Abe Lincoln and think about everything that you know and have ever learned about Abe Lincoln. Abe Lincoln had less than 1 year of formal schooling. He failed at business twice, and he lost the presidential election 8 times before he was elected president. What do you remember about Abe Lincoln? I bet it's none of those things. How many times can you stand to fail before you succeed? This is called your failure quotient. Quotient. The longer you work at this, the longer you work at being okay with hearing the word no, the higher your failure quotient becomes. The less personal you take it, and the more that you understand, it's just business. It's just part of the game. And let me tell you, this is something I'm personally working very hard at right now myself. So I'm not telling you that I am great at going for no right now. Not by a long shot, but it is something that after reading this book, I understand how much it can help me. R.H. Macy failed at starting his store, Macy's, 7 times. You've likely heard the story about KFC, Colonel Sanders. He was 65 years old and spent 2 years trying to sell his chicken recipe to restaurants, and not a single person signed on to have him sell his recipe. But he didn't quit, and his failure quotient got higher the more he tried. His presentation got better, and he got better at selling it, and eventually it all started to work out. No cannot be devastating. Instead, when you hear the word no, take a deep breath, learn what you can from it, and say, next. The only rational approach to failure is to move on. I want you to think about that. Are you a rational person? The name of the book is Go for No, and I'm going to double check the author. Richard Fenton is the author. And you can listen to it on audible.com. The only rational approach to failure is to move on, and it becomes easier with practice. The other thing that we do when we fail is we overanalyze the why. Why we failed, what we did wrong, and we agonize and we talk about it and we go over it and we hold on to it, right? We need to stop overanalyzing why we fail. Stop overanalyzing why we're afraid to fail. That's the other thing we do. Oh, I'm afraid to fail because when I was 7, I got last place in my science experiment or something. You know, we hold on to things really, really tightly as if it's going to affect the rest of every moment of our lives. And really, it doesn't have to. You don't need to ignore your failures, but becoming numb to the word no is going to help you to move on from it. And next is going to be your best friend and the best word you can use. I want to talk to you just a little bit about Babe Ruth. Many of you probably know about Babe Ruth, and he held a record for 714 home runs for a very, very long time. He also held another record that I'm sure you don't know about. He had 1,330 strikeouts. It was also a record. People don't remember Babe Ruth for how many times he struck out. People remember Babe Ruth for how many times he succeeded. People aren't going to remember the times that you heard the word no. People aren't going, and you won't either. You're going to hold on to the times that you heard yes. Your comfort zone is always doing two things. It's expanding or it's shrinking. And it's up to you to keep the momentum going in whichever direction your comfort zone needs to go. Think about that. Are you going to work on expanding your comfort zone? The more you expand it, the more it continues to expand. And the less you work with it, the more it shrinks, and the more into yourself you become. The more you let fear take over, and the more that the word no becomes a 4-letter word. There was an experiment done with some pike, some fish, in a tank, with a piece of glass going down the middle. The pike was on this side, and a bunch of minnows were on this side. The pike spent hours trying to get at the minnows, his favorite lunch, and kept hitting his nose into the glass. Eventually, the pike gave up, and he stopped going after the minnows, and the glass was removed. The pike never tried to go through that glass again. His self-imposed constraints kept him on his side of the tank, all mad because he had failed. Failing makes people afraid to do that thing again. And when you hit your nose in the glass too many times, it can be very scary to go toward that glass again. So think about that. There's always an opportunity to go toward that glass again. 80% of people in sales don't make it through their first year because they fail to talk to enough people. Are you talking to enough people? I know I'm not, and it's something that I need to do. The people that hear the word no the most are the people that ultimately hear the word yes the most. So, I want to conclude with telling you this. It doesn't mean that you have to become a spammer. It doesn't mean that you have to be annoying. It doesn't mean that you have to be unreasonable. But it does mean that you need to go out of your comfort zone and be willing to expand it and try to hear the word no a little bit more often. Start small if it really scares you. Start really small. Go for 2 no's tomorrow. You don't have to go for 100. And then move on from there and continuously work on expanding your comfort zone. I would really encourage you to read this book, Go for No by Richard Fenton. It is on audible.com, so you can listen to it. It's about an hour and 30 minutes. It's really, really quick, but it had some really great information in it that I used for this presentation, so you're going to probably feel like you've already read part of it. But it's given me a new lease on how I want to move forward with both my recruiting efforts and my sales efforts. And I hope it's given you that kind of excitement too, and that we don't have to be afraid to hear the word no. And it's okay to go outside of our comfort zone. So I want to say thank you very, very much. You're welcome, Joanna, and everyone else. Oh, that's really sweet, Jessica. You guys all empower me to make a difference in all of our lives. So I want to thank you for all of your support always. Um, I've heard I don't care if I lose friends, if I'm annoying in my business. I think there is a fine line, that being annoying is definitely not okay. I think you need to be genuine and true to yourself and true to your brand, and both the brand that you have and the brand of your company. I think that taking the feeling out of it and saying I don't care what other people think, or I don't care if people are annoyed by me, I think that can be detrimental to everyone. Don't you? I think there's a fine line, and finding balance is always a really good idea. Oh, I guess I went out. All right. I will see you all later. Thank you so much for watching tonight, and have a great day.